Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and it's not Spawn year. It's day 9 of my comic review video day calendar. And today we're going to take a look at a What If issue. I love What If. It's one of my favorite things in comics, and I wanted to make sure and do some of those this year. At least one, but likely more. This is What If Volume 2, number 62 from 1994. We're back to that year, and this one I had never read before. Always thought it was a provocative cover. It seems like a inevitable thing, kind of an obvious thing you got to do with Wolverine, with What If at some point. Instead of becoming Weapon X, Logan fights Weapon X. So he never fights the Hulk. We're told in this that he never becomes Wolverine at all, and instead of that big epic battle being the first time we would see Wolverine, this ends up being the first and last time we see Wolverine, where the Department H, the Weapon X program, goes after Logan but does not succeed. So this opens similarly to the Weapon X book by Barry Windsor Smith. Of course, this is how What If always goes. It's a divergent path from with events that actually happen. They happen a little bit differently, and you go off into another direction where the history, the universe, merges off into some other kind of universe, and things happen differently. And so the divergent point here is the very beginning of that story, right away. Wolverine is still self-destructive, as the Watcher says. He's wallowing in alcohol. He's lost and doesn't know what to do with himself, but just gets lucky this time around and doesn't end up getting captured. And it seems like it's been a while since I've read the Weapon X miniseries, but it seems to me like the thugs, the guys that get sent after him from Department H, just aren't as good at their job. They do it differently. They just attack him like out in a yard. And if memory serves, they watch him for a while in the miniseries, and then they're smart about how they kidnap him. I think maybe he's even asleep when they get to him. I don't immediately recall, but here, they just show up, and he's like, you guys are idiots, this is easy, and he doesn't have any problem stopping them. And then they have to go after some other guy, presumably also a mutant, although he's made up for this comic, and I don't know what his mutant power is. If he is a mutant, it's not really discussed in this. And when I say some guy, he's literally some guy. His name is Guy Desjardins, which is apparently supposed to be a nod to Guy Gardner. I'm not sure why, because he doesn't really have Guy Gardner's attitude, or if he does, we would never know that, because he's just a feral beast in this, because he's already been transformed into Weapon X, and we're told that he, by the mad scientist from Weapon X, that he is either a mad berserker rage monster or he's unconscious. And Cornelius is that guy, and he and Guy. You never really get in his head or get a conversation with him or anything to find out what he was like before this. We're just given a tiny bit of backstory to say that he was a soldier like Logan was. He has, quote, a wall full of combat decorations. He's in perfect health, and that makes him the perfect candidate to become Weapon X. But my question is, does he have the healing factor like Wolverine does? What makes him special enough that he can, not just his skill set, but that he physically is able to take the adamantium graft onto his skeleton without it killing him? By the way, this is written by Kurt Busiek, one of my favorite comic writers, and it's drawn by Ron Randall, who I had never heard of. He's pretty good for Wolverine. I think he leans more toward the Frank Miller side of things than the Barry Windsor Smith side of things, and that I found that somewhat distracting through this, just because this doesn't have at all the same kind of mystery, sense of mystery and atmosphere and style of Windsor Smith's Weapon X Mini, and it's difficult for me to look at this, and I'm partial to that book, so I have a hard time not looking for kind of inherently the level of detail in the artwork, the intricate circuitry, and the line work. The grit is there. It's real pencily, I guess, like Windsor Smith, but it's clearly, clearly this guy didn't have the time to work on it that Windsor Smith would have had to have. And I don't want to say the whole thing is phoned in. Again, I think he's serviceable for this sort of material, but when we're going back to an old work, especially a classic work like this, and you're trying to be authentic to the original story, looking at a different direction that it might have gone, I would love the artwork to look as close to the original material as possible, and it would be great to see the original artist always come back, which is, of course, not always feasible. And I think there are What If comics where we bring back, I'm positive, the original artist for things, but, it can't always happen. I have to say that this is not one of the best What Ifs that I've read. I feel like it's not as creative and clever about things as it might be. I really expected some kind of revelation about either who this character is, the new guy who's Weapon X instead of Wolverine. Maybe at the end it turns out that it's somebody we've heard of before, like Sabretooth or somebody. Of course, I don't need it to be that. It could certainly win me over. But I expected, if not that kind of reveal, just here's what his power set is, here's why he's able to physically handle this, and we never get that, so that's a bit of a bummer. And then when you get to the end, the big revelation at the end is what we're given at the very beginning, which is Logan takes down Weapon X, and he sort of proves that he's more man than animal, although that's interestingly debatable given the kind of, one page worth of soul searching that he does in the middle of the fight with Weapon X, where and the action is pretty good. By the way, this page is very Frank Miller. Reminds me a lot of the early issues of the of the original miniseries, and then even, this isn't Miller, but even the early issues of the ongoing starting in '89. But that looks like it could have been a cover of that series, but it looks like a pinup too. But I digress. Anyway, you get to the very end, and Logan has this kind of moment of where he's kind of battling within himself. What is the right way to handle this? I need to not let my animal instincts take over, not resort to my baser instincts, and think like a man, not like an animal. Like I'm too much like this guy. This is why they came after me. And so he has this good opportunity for change, where he's like, I'm not going to be the animal that they need me to be in order to take this guy down. I have to think like a man, like a human being. I'm going to use my brain. And he doesn't do any kind of like really he doesn't use a lot of ingenuity or anything that any regular person wouldn't think of. He's like, I'll take his helmet off. I'm not an animal. I took his helmet off. Okay, good job, Logan. There's using your head. There's some resourcefulness for you. And then he goes, but my heart says that there is a human being in here somewhere, and I shouldn't just kill him. But my mind says, I'm trying to be a man, not an animal, that I have to kill him, that it's not smart to do that. So he goes ahead and kills him anyway. So in a weird roundabout way, he winds up in the same place he might have, trying to be the man instead of the animal, which is kind of interesting, but it doesn't ultimately really go anywhere. I guess it's just sort of in character for Wolverine, where you still kind of have the ambiguity of how much man versus animal is he? And then you get to the end, and I guess because he went up against Weapon X and stopped him in order to help save the world, I guess, because a friend of his from the military was murdered by Weapon X, not to mention the entire early team of Alpha Flight. He has what the Watcher says is an inner peace now. Where I found myself kind of disappointed was wanting to know, okay, what happens after that, though? How would this affect, like, mutant kind on the whole? How would it affect the X-Men? Like, he never becomes Wolverine, and, like, not every What If comic gives you the big, massive aftermath after that, but in 1994, you might expect a little bit more acknowledgement about how popular Wolverine is and how synonymous he is with the X-Men. So to not deal with that seems like I found kind of disappointing and was really surprising to me. Like, okay, I guess he never has amnesia. He doesn't have to go through any of the trauma and torment that he did in the regular timeline and in the regular 616 universe, and he has a chance at some kind of a normal life. We don't really know what he'll do after this. He's just kind of generically happier now, and we're told Alpha Flight is never created. There's not an attempt at that after that. There's not any more attempts at another Weapon X program. Who knows what happens with Deadpool? I guess you wouldn't even have that character now because that would be Weapon 11. So it's a little lame. I found myself imagining like 35 other ways to take the story and end the story that would be kind of more interesting than this, and so it felt kind of obligatory, where the answer to this is, well, they fight and Wolverine wins, and then he doesn't have to be Wolverine. The end. Like, we're given the answer to the question on page 1, and then seeing how we get there is a little bit lackluster. Another thing that's kind of interesting about this is the other Weapon X, or the Weapon X of this universe, has Wolverine's claws, and he doesn't have the bone claws because that's a thing that comes later in the retroactive origin, which is which some people really like and some people don't. It's pretty polarizing, the idea that Wolverine already had claws, and that was just another part of his power set, and adamantium is put over them. Here you have a guy who also gets the claws just implanted in the first place and doesn't seem to have anything under them. I don't know why they're jagged the way they are. I don't know why they're so different from what Wolverine's claws were. But what's weird is just to have the iconography of Wolverine, he still has to hold something that looks like claws. So he goes up against this guy, and at first he like uses a gun, which doesn't really help. So he goes, okay, I'm gonna pull out this other weapon, and he's kind of excited to use that. It is really contrived that he would have that, where he's got these really silly knives. It's very, very mid-90s, where that he holds with a handle that's just a big knife on the end, and he stabs like he's got Wolverine claws so that you can have that iconography. I think that's really funny. So yeah, this was not a favorite What If comic, certainly. It's not terrible. It's not Kurt Busiek's best work, certainly, and it feels a little rushed, and like we've got to get an issue out this month, and it goes in kind of, the clearest, most obvious place possible. So I was honestly kind of disappointed with this one, and pretty excited to finally take a look at it, and it's okay. Thanks a lot for watching, sure appreciate it, and I will see you again tomorrow with another one. If you're wondering why I've been standing this whole video, it's because it's very cold outside, and it's very late at night, and my heater is doing its level best, but it's just not good enough. So I am more comfortable standing right now than sitting and moving a little bit than sitting in a chair. And I thought I'd just mix up the scenery a little bit. So, in case you were ever curious about what the ceiling in my unfinished bunker looks like, that's it. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Tell your friends. Bye, folks.